Hello and welcome to Off the Record Goes to College. I think that's a reference to a punk band that I've never heard of. Is it, Jesse?
I thought you said you were going to do Descendants covers if something happened on Facebook the other day. I thought you at least knew this band.
I saw Filmage.
Oh,
I
wow.
cried.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's really moving.
I went to a screening of Filmage in Philadelphia, whenever that was, and I cried. And then I ordered a DVD. It will be the last DVD I ever order in my entire life. Yeah.
I still ordered the ones that I'm in because I feel like there's a thing about owning the physical things that you're in, or like it's the same thing. Like
DVDs
I like records.
are you in?
I've been interviewed in a lot of movies lately. I hate to break it to you.
I'm not in any movies. This is bullshit.
I don't know if you saw New Boys magazine today, but they called me a punk rock great.
What am I then?
It's the sound of my nails being blowed on right now.
Wow. Wow, this is terrible. I hate when someone's ego gets stroked and it's not mine.
So it's not as good as when Dying Seed called me a wildly influential force in modern punk rock.
Well, if Dying Seed's calling you anything, it's terrible for you.
Just let me put this out. Don't be a hater. Just let me put
Hey,
this out
you know
there.
what? Am I not popular enough anymore? Is Property Zach not top tier enough anymore?
I guess not. But I just want to put my will wishes out there. Make sure that goes on my gravestone if I die prematurely.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I assume I will be the one in charge of that. So
Totes.
Yeah.
I just want this for the record.
I'll be having a separate ceremony for the Defenders so that they don't crash your funeral.
I definitely don't want the Defenders at my funeral.
Just me.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
You are the king of the Defend Pop Punk board.
I am. I'm not
Even
allowed
if
to
I'm
come.
the father, you're the king.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Look at that. Look at that.
Does that make me Jesus?
I mean, we're kind of like the Holy Trinity, the Hot Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. Like, there's something going on there.
Okay. We can keep running on this.
We're not going to reenact the Jesus going back in time to hold himself thing, though. We're not doing that.
I'll do what I want.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, welcome to Off the Record Goes to College. We have been getting we always get a lot of great questions and feedback regarding people in high school, people in college, people looking to get into the music industry after college, interning, real jobs, all of the above, etc. And so Jesse and I often try to say, we talked about this on one episode X months ago. So instead, we want to do one blowout or two blowout episodes about all this stuff. And we asked you guys for a lot of questions, and you guys sent in a lot of questions, and we really, really appreciate that, both through tweeting hashtag AskOTR on Twitter and also through email and our Tumblr page. So thank you guys a lot. It's really cool to see how much interaction we can get, especially when you are all interested. It means a lot to us. We like doing this, and hopefully this is a fun one. Jesse is really old, so it'll be interesting to see how he started his high school advice versus my high school advice, because I just graduated from high school. And Jesse's getting ready to graduate into the senior home.
Dude, I got at least twice my life before that happens.
Twice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 37. That means I'd go there at 74.
Okay. I think I want to tap out at 75.
Yeah, no, I have this big thing. Bill Maher once said this thing. 60 Sammy Davis years, not 90 Jesse Helms years.
I don't know who either of those people are.
Sammy Davis Jr. was like this guy. He hung around with Frank Sinatra, and basically he partied and had sex with all the women. And Jesse Helms was this like really Christian guy who did not live a life, who was a really bigoted senator as well.
Huh.
He was a hater. He was a hater, and he was like a Christian family values hater. He just wasn't living.
Okay. Well, back to college.
High school. We're starting in high school.
You want to? Okay. So you want to start us off here?
So the advice I would have for anyone in high school, and so I would say you want to think about what skill set you're going to want in the real world. So my best example of how I lived this was, despite the fact that we all know I was not in a famous band or anything like that, I thought I was going to be a rock star when I was in high school. And I thought I was going to be in the biggest punk band around. So what I did is I did all the things I thought I would need to do that would be a part of that skill set. So I took all the music courses, obviously. I learned music theory. I joined the band, even though I refused to be in the marching band and wear that stupid uniform because that's so not punk rock. But I think one of the better things I chose to do is I chose to go to auto shop.
This is interesting.
So I figured the van's going to break down and we're not going to have any money, and I'll know how to fix it.
Wow, you were punk as a high schooler.
I mean, I was writing articles for Punk Planet on DIY in high school.
I was wearing a jacket, tie, and khaki pants every day, but you obviously got down and dirty.
Yeah, I would have to wear a jumpsuit over my ripped shorts with cigarette burns in them and my Screeching Weasel t-shirt. So, but I took auto shop for, I think, 3 years in high school. Ironically, now I haven't owned a car for 7 years. But I knew a lot about what to do, and when things would go wrong, when we would be doing it, I kind of knew what the deal was. That was good. What I didn't do that wasn't so good. So I think I've discussed this before, but I dropped out of high school about 30 days before the end of my senior year, which never has been a detriment to me, but I don't think I shouldn't say I don't think. I don't recommend it to anybody. I'm kind of the exception that got by. I got my GED and I went to college right after. But one of the things I did do that wasn't the smartest is I went, fuck English class. I don't need to learn this stuff. And then I had to learn how to do grammar a lot when I was older, much to Thomas Nassif's detriment. When
He's
he had still
to
learning,
my book. Guys.
Well, I mean, there is some truth to that. Thomas wanted to murder me when I wrote my book for all my bad grammatical and sentence structure errors. Whatever you want to do in this life, if you want to own a record label, you're going to have to write press releases. You're going to have to do Photoshop. You're going to have to edit videos. You're going to have to learn a lot of these things. You should make sure you pay attention in high school in those classes, because the more you know at it, the less you're going to have to pay other people, and the more you're going to know when those people you pay do a bad job. Because that's the other thing too, is I think a lot of people go, I'm just going to pay somebody else to do that. But if you don't know this stuff, you're not going to know when somebody's ripping you off. And that's super, super important. So my advice is, whatever you think you're going to do, figure out what skills are going to be in that and study. If you're going to be in PR, you got to be a good writer, and you got to be good at communication, and you got to be good at public speaking, most likely.
Oh, that's okay. I like where you're coming at. Maybe I shouldn't even be on this episode. You're just going to say all the smart things.
You don't have anything aside from that?
No, I have a lot, actually.
Okay, good.
So it's interesting, like, Jesse had an approach that he wanted to be a rock star, and so he wanted to be a smart rock star, which is smart, right? Like, Jesse could have just hoped to play a guitar and learn Led Zeppelin riffs for 24 hours a day and become really good at his instrument. Instead, I would say it's fair to say you wanted to go more the practical route while still being a rock star, right?
Yeah, I also kind of knew that. I also knew from the time I was 15 I was going to probably be a record producer. I thought I knew I would write a book at some point. I also figured I'd own a club at some point, but I started working at a club during high school and realized I didn't want to do that with my life.
Right. So I imagine, it's interesting, because I imagine most people listening to this, or most people that ask us questions, either clearly want to be doing something in music. So that's great because they're aware of it, right? And that means they fit in more next to you, in the sense that, like, whether they know fully what they want their career to be, they know that they want it to be in music. So that's great. Though I imagine there are also some people that just like music, are interested in the music industry, but don't necessarily want to be in it. When I was in high school, I didn't know you could be in the music industry. I'm going to tell
Wait. Yeah, clarify that. That sounds weird.
Hold on. So I'm going to tell Jesse a little secret that I've never said out loud to anyone except my parents and my ex-girlfriend. But until I started Property of Zach, and maybe even while I was doing Property of Zach for a little while in my junior year of high school, I wanted to be a record producer.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So I seriously have not thought about this since probably high school. But I wanted to make, like, this sounds so dumb, man. I wanted to, like, make the music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really intent. My parents had no idea what this meant. And I didn't really have any idea what this meant either, right? Like, it's interesting. I think when you're young and you want to do something, you you don't think about the steps to get there. You just want to be there. And that's still a thing for adults. But yeah, I wanted to be a record producer. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how you could become one. Like, I didn't know any of it. And so I remember Googling one day, like, I want to be like record producer schools. And then I think I told my mom, and here's the part where it gets silly with Jesse. I went to my mom, and I was probably a sophomore in high school, and I was like, I want to go to Full Sail College for 2 years.
Oh God. I did too. I toured Full Sail with my father.
And I think that's why I've never told Jesse, because I didn't want to embarrass myself. And for why we say that, Full Sail does not have a good reputation among people who actually work in the music industry. Is that fair to say?
That is very fair to say, and we will get into this in the college thing.
Okay.
That also, the biggest problem with Full Sail is you can never pay down that loan.
Right. So regardless of this was what I wanted to do. Is the only thing I wanted to do. I had never thought of anything else. And then, like we've talked about ad nauseum, and so I don't want to get too far into it, like I accidentally started Property of Zach. I was doing it, and this was in like my junior year of college. And so I was very fortunate enough to go to a private boys' school in Manhattan while growing up. And
Zach was living that Gossip Girl life.
I was. I am actually Dan Humphrey. I was fortunate enough to go to a school that was very, very, very proactive about getting their students to college. Meaning we had, my grade of 24 people, like we had one college advisor, and that was plenty enough to go around for 24 kids.
Wow, there was 24 kids.
My graduating class was very small, but very small, meaning the average was like 29. So 24.
I think mine was 400,
which was still really small.
Is 400 small?
It's not massive.
That seems massive to me, but sure.
Okay, maybe I'm sorry.
I've dated girls who've went to 1,000.
Well, let me tell you this: when I graduated school, there were 385 kids in my entire school, K through 12.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, to get back on track, like my school was very aggressive about making sure we were up on our SAT stuff and ACT stuff. Unlike Jesse, I did go all through high school and almost all the way through college. When the college conversation started happening in our junior year of high school, I wasn't the best student, and I didn't really have any desires to do anything. And then I think at some point it kind of dawned upon me, like, oh, I think music's a thing. Like, you don't just have to be in a band, and you don't just have to be a producer. Like, I didn't really understand, frankly, until I met someone like Jesse and was like, oh, managers are tangible things and you can do this. Or, oh, Jason Tate is a human being that gets paid to run a website. That's interesting. I run a website. And so as I started to figure these things out, I started to look at colleges that had music industry programs. I don't really know either how I found out that colleges had music industry programs. And so during my, I guess Jesse opened it up by talking about what he did in high school. Jesse, it seems like, had a plan. He took auto shop because...
Yeah, I knew since I was 12, I wanted to be a rock star. And at 15, I decided I wanted to be a record producer.
Right. And so this is different than me in the sense that I think I actually, looking back at it, I did a lot of good things in high school, but not on purpose. I wanted Property of Zach to grow as best it could and for me to do cool things. And by nature, I started talking with publicists and managers and record labels and bands and so on, and I got all these connections. But it wasn't on purpose in the sense that Jesse took auto shop on purpose. But looking back at high school, I think the best thing that I did was I started to do something early. And I learned, I made most of my mistakes, let's say, in high school. I wish I made less mistakes. But when you're 16, 17, and 18, you don't have much of a choice because you're so naive and ignorant to the world around you, which isn't bad. Yeah. It's just reality.
It's hard to see the
big picture.
Yeah.
People still don't 40-year-olds don't see the big picture.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are older than me that don't.
Right. And so it's very, very difficult. But I think the most important thing long term that either fell upon me or I lucked out with was making connections and asking for help.
You were very good at being outgoing too.
I think so. And I was nervous, like it wasn't I'm very confident now to an extent, and people might think I'm an egotistical asshole, but when I was 16 and 17 and had spent the last 10 years of my life being like bullied in school, like there's no confidence, especially when everyone is telling you that they won't pay attention to you because you're 16 and run a Tumblr website. So I think at an early age, the most that you can hope to do is sort of pick something, whether it ends up what you want to be doing at 25 or not, and start learning how to do it, and start thinking about the larger picture within that small field, within that niche. If you think you want to be a publicist one day, start getting good at writing. Write reviews. That doesn't mean you want to be doesn't mean you want to start the next Property Zach, but you need to be able to be a good writer. You need to be able to describe a band's sound, how they make things work. You need to develop your English. Like Jesse said, like if you want to be a writer or a publicist, like be good at your English classes. It pays off. If you want to be a record label owner someday, if you want to be a lawyer someday, like read the paper. Get a business sense.
And also like take courses on web development. That's going to be one of the biggest things you have to do. Is you're going to have to constantly update websites. You have to do web design and look at layouts and figure out how to more efficiently get sales for your thing. Like that's so much of what this stuff is management and labels, is like learning how to read analytics. Wow. Like taking a statistics class. That was huge for me, for the fact that like from when I was 17 on, I took like these statistics and marketing classes. So like I always had a pretty good grip on that stuff. And, we both come from parents that are involved in marketing and merchandising. So we both had like an advantage that we heard about that spoken of all our lives. But like that is a huge, huge thing of like whatever your blanks are, and like these are all things that you're going to have to fill in at some point.
Yeah, ultimately, and this sucks as a thing of advice, but like ultimately, I think my biggest advantage to everything was that I grew up in a household that gave me a business sense, Mm-hmm. And no, I can't that's not advice to anyone, unfortunately. But I think that started me on my path.
But some of the advice, like, so I have a close friend who's like a little older than you right now. And she's very good at going around and finding people who will give her good guidance. I think that's one of the things, is reaching out to people. Like, there's people who write for your site, who write me for advice, and like I'm happy to always do that. We do these things, and it's like I think that's the thing is you reach out and you try to find somebody who will instill that. Like my father was a freelancer in advertising all his life till retirement, and like one of the best things he taught me that applied to my career, even though it has nothing to do with it as a record producer, was he just said, if you're going to freelance, when you want more work, lower your rate. When you want less work because you're too busy, it's time to raise your rate. And I've been doing that ebb and flow for years. There was a couple of years ago when the financial collapse happened. I was really out of work. Like there was so much less work because people were home recording instead of going to producers. I lowered my rate and it built my business back up because I got new clients in the door. I think that that's a big thing is like learning some of those things and learning from people is like, if you don't have it on your parents, find someone who's older, who's going to be nice to you, find the way to take them to lunch or talk to them at a show or whatever. Reach out on the internet, on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. So how should we do this? Should we answer some questions that people ask directly regarding high school now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd want to say one last thing.
Okay.
Is that high school in preparation for college before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two types of schools. There's obviously vocational schools where you pretty much don't need to have an SAT score. I never took my SATs, for example, and I still went to the Institute of Audio Research. I think I took my PSATs, and that was it. Some of these schools are going to let you in no matter what. Full Sail, IAR, SAE, if you're going for recording or music business. And then there's a real college, like what Zach goes to. Zach goes to one of the better schools in America. which you actually have to do good and get good grades and do an application and do sorts of things for. I will say this, since there's a lot of things that, can go wrong along the way, my best advice is to skip the vocational schools altogether. The vocational schools tend to be too much money on your student loan to not do much for you. If you're going to go to college, go to a real, whether it's community or what would you call what your school is that's not community, like a university?
I go to a university.
Yeah.
I can echo in on this too.
Yes, please do.
Like I was saying, I wanted to go to Full Sail, and I didn't know anything about college, really, right? Like, I was just a kid. Like, I assume a good amount of listeners of the show are, and my mom and dad were like, this doesn't look like a real school. Maybe we're old, but this doesn't look like a real school, I go to a school called Drexel University. Within it, there are many colleges. I go to a college called Westfall. It's the art section of the university. So there's like graphic design, fashion, video, music industry. So I basically go to, in a sense, a vocational school within a university, where I also have to take a core curriculum of, I guess, essentially liberal college courses.
Liberal arts, yeah.
Liberal art courses. So
I don't think your father would be happy if you were getting just a liberal.
Do you know how much he hates liberal arts colleges?
I mean, he's a conservative. None of them like it.
Yeah, it's incredible, though. Like, if you really ever want to set my dad off, Jesse, just start.
That's not my interest. It's just my existence does that.
I know, but I just wanted to let you know next time you come to New Jersey. I'm going to take this one step further, and I think we'll get more into this when we get deeper into a college conversation. But when you're looking to go from high school to college, and you're looking at colleges, and you're dead set on working in the music industry, what I would say is get a good degree. Don't worry about a music industry degree. Get a degree that, if you want to be a lawyer in the music industry, like, you don't need, like, do things that will better aid you before going to law school. Get a business degree. Get a whatever kind of degree. If you want to be an accountant for the music industry, don't take a music industry degree. Get a finance or an accounting or a business degree. Again, like, what I think is the most important thing, besides going to a school that is good if you can afford it, is going to a school that's good in a town or a city that can benefit you musically. And what I mean by that is, I go to school in Philadelphia. It currently, I would say, has the best music scene in the entire country, and has just by happenstance, has had the best music industry since I came to college in the last 4 years. And what that means is I'm surrounded by a wealth of music, record labels, managers, venues, etc. And if I was just in the business school, but was really interested in the music industry, I would still have a lot of access to all of those people, but I'd have a normal degree. I'll be graduating with a music degree. It means nothing. And so, again, what I think is most important is getting a good degree that matters if you ever want to be outside of the music industry, but surrounding yourself in a town or a city that's close by or is near or has access to the greater music industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I agree with you at all. I'm going to expand upon it a little. So the reason we also say not to get a music business degree and not to go to school for music business, and not to say there's not some great schools, I spoke up at Syracuse. That they seem to have a great, well-rounded program, and the Berkeley program is great and stuff like that, and you really do get an exhaustive education. But what is much more valuable if you're trying to get a job or you're going to do things yourself is getting a real degree. Getting a business degree means you're going to be able to get a loan in anything you want for the rest of your life. Getting an accounting degree, for example, which is a way easier degree to get than a lot of things, you can do that 2 years pretty cheap at a vocational school. You're going to be able to do the accounting and make money at doing accounting for other people or maybe even labels on the side. But getting a music business degree, it's like, yeah, it seems like such a good idea. It's so much fun, and we all want to go to college and have fun and get the cool lecturers there. But honestly, it's such a waste. Now, the other thing I want to say to keep in mind a lot of this is that starting jobs in the music business pay so bad. I mean, it's a sad fact of the music business. The money's been drained. You look at Zach and I, like, we both do a lot of jobs to make the money we make. And I wouldn't call that always necessary, but like a great example is like the girl I'm dating right now. It's like she's having such a hard time being in New York City because the cost of living in New York City is so hard, but the jobs are there for fashion are all in New York City. You can't be in Boise, Idaho, or wherever and do fashion and really make it in the big world. But the problem is that also that student loan to go to the best school is really, really expensive. And every month you got to pay that down if you don't have parents who can do that for you. And it makes having to get a job and like those years where you're trying to find what you want to do, they makes them way more intense than not having that over your head. And that's my biggest argument against a school like Full Sail is you go for 2 years and they give you so much debt that it's near impossible then to pay that debt off every month and live any sort of life where you're not eating, the most disgusting food and having no social life to get by.
Yes, I'm with you. And I will just real quickly add that, like, there are, like Jesse was saying, there are very, very good music industry schools. As we'll get into in a little bit, I just think there's more you can do without tying yourself necessarily to one.
I think that exhausts that. So why don't we answer some high school questions and then we'll move on to what you can be doing in college.
I will ask the first one. I am a New Jersey high school student studying in a fine and performing arts program on the entertainment technology side, and it is time for me to start looking at a college. I'm looking to study music production and engineering since that's what I'm learning now, and I'm just not sure where this education or what kind of education will get me out there in this industry. How important is a music education now? Is it better to study the art and talent rather than the business aspect? How can I get a start now to end up where I want to be in a few years? From Curtis. Real quick, I will say that, like, my high school, which was good, never had any like specialty stuff, and I always find it interesting to hear from people that like go to high school with specialty tiers. But this seems like a question pretty right up Jesse's alley.
Here's my advice if you want to be a producer. Do not go to recording school. Now you're saying, Jesse, you went and look at you. Funny enough, my degree has never done a single thing for me. I've never gotten a job from my degree. In fact, when I went to work for my first recording studio job after college, I had a few before college. It was for this guy, Alan Douches, who runs West Side Music, which is probably the top mastering house in our scene.
So good that he just mastered 4 Jade Tree records in the span of 2 weeks.
Yeah, see? And we did all the entire Jade Tree catalog when I was there working. Alan didn't want to hire me because I went to recording school. What made him hire me is we sat down and we had a conversation for an hour. It was scheduled to be a half hour, and then it turns into 2 hours. And it turned out that we just had a great rapport and saw the world the same way. And we're still the best of friends. Going to school for engineering, let me say two, it puts you at a bad deficit because you're paying down that student loan. You don't learn much more than you could learn if you just picked up a few books and sat in your house and then maybe got an internship with 1 or 2 people who knew, or maybe if you have a band, went and recorded with 1 or 2 people you respect over the years. You will learn just as much doing that as you will in college. And really, I know the college has job placement things. So, for example, my graduating class, I know 2 people who are still working out of over 100 in the music business.
God, that's so terrifying. I don't know. I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but like I look around my college grade of, I don't know, I think there are 50 people in my program or 40 people in my program for my year. And it's just like, I don't know that I'll necessarily be lucky enough to be working in music in 10 years either, right? But I look around and I'm like, I don't know how many, like, I don't know if 5 of us stand a chance here long term. And ultimately, I think maybe what we're saying is that, like, regardless of the kind of education you get, ultimately it's on you. It's on you to push through and to be great at what you do. And no college, as good as it is, just like no school, no parent, no anything will get you there. Ultimately, it's on you at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is like we're going to get more into this when we get into the job thing. But I think the real thing I want to also instill about going to school for production is the amount of people who are able to sustain a living doing what I do gets less and less every day with each home studio that opens. I'm very lucky that I got into this so long ago. and I've worked very hard at it. But time and time again, what I see is that most people who intern for me or go to audio school that I know cannot sustain it because it's just the overhead to buy all this equipment. And, I own $250,000 of equipment. Yeah, it's insane to think how much work that is to do and get all that stuff so you can compete and be able to get to where you want to get. It's just so rare. And the real thing, if you want to be a record producer, is that you should just go out and start getting experience in recording bands for free as fast as you can. And getting talented. And now, if you did want to go to college and you really wanted to do what I wanted to do instead of production, and you're like, so for example, my family made me go to college. They said, you have to go to college. I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go out on tour and hang out with bands and do sound.
Your dad is shaking his head right now.
Yeah. I mean, they were very adamant that I had to go to college. I am kind of I have no regrets, so I'm thankful for that, I guess.
No regrets. Get that tattooed on your forehead.
Yeah, right. If you have to go to college, the best thing you can learn as a record producer is music theory. Knowing the details of what makes music work and those inner details, and being a great musician is what makes you be a great record producer. Learn to play piano better. Those simple things are the best things you can do if you want to be a good record producer, is learning the instruments around it and the music theory around it. You will be a far better record producer than a lot of other people.
Yeah, and regarding this question about the business aspect, just learn how to invoice, learn the basics of a contract. Like, Jesse, what like if you had to list 3 to 5 things that in a basic business sense that have been really beneficial for you, like what would they be? Like like for instance, I asked Jesse to invoice me for a Bad Timing release yesterday, and he sent it to us within 15 minutes. Dude wants his money.
I do want my money, especially because I had to buy an expensive dinner for my date last night. Yeah, I mean, as far as business things you go, Excel spreadsheet, which you can get at any, you can go take a college for that for $200. That's some of the biggest things in an HTML course, and photoshopping and video editing. Like, that's really where it's at. And then learning some basic business stuff by reading business books, you're going to be ahead of the curve. And honestly, do you know a single record label person who's like, oh, well, I want to see your college degree?
No one has ever asked me for my degree. Maybe that means that they know I'm still in college or was in high school, but still.
Well, I've had a lot of jobs in the music business, and no one's ever seen my degree. What they care about is my skill set and then my personality, that I get shit done.
Always get shit done. That's the most important thing. Also, I will just say, as a general piece of advice throughout this whole thing, never take on something that you're not going to end up doing.
Oh, yeah. Great advice.
I can, as much as I like some people and want them to succeed, if I've had multiple experiences, someone where they've promised something and it hasn't come through, I cannot rely on them again because other people are relying on me to get something done, And so only commit to something that you want to do or can do or will do. It will hurt you if you end up committing to something and you fail on it. It's just that's just the truth. Sometimes things come up. If things come up, you need to let the person know about them as soon as it comes up. And that's just a general thing of advice.
So the next question about working in the music industry. My career goal is to be a tour manager or design, sell merch for a band. And currently I'm a junior in high school, run a music review blog, and I'm known in my local scene supporting a group of local bands and stuff, but I want a backup plan if nothing happens within the next few years. Is a college degree necessary to get somewhere in the industry, or is experience more valuable? How can I get the job that normally friends of the band get?
Well, we kind of just talked about that in some senses, but
you know what we didn't talk about? How can I get the job that normally friends of the band get?
That's true.
That's a really interesting one. And don't you think some of that is that you have to be in the community?
You need to work to get there first.
Well, I think you have to just be a part of the community. Like, whether it's commenting, like in our scene, it'd be talking to people on Twitter and commenting on things, going to shows and letting people know that you do that, and then maybe taking a tour with a shitty band and then meeting the other bands that are on the road. But yeah, the friends usually get it, because this is the other thing too, is that it doesn't take a lot of qualification to be a tour manager. I mean, I've seen some of the stupidest people I've ever met be tour managers.
Yeah.
And they do it, and they'll never get to be a top tier tour manager and managing a big band because they'll get fired once the pressure. I mean, you and I have both seen some people we know who, once the band gets big, they are now fired from their tour managing position because it actually takes some brains to count out merch, and that shouldn't even take that much brains, and they're not even capable of that level of brains.
Yeah, and I will just say that I think being part of the community is important. Like that's where you get started, but it can go way further from there, you know. An example, a friend of mine, Baby Drew, I met him 5 years ago, probably. He was doing merch for Such Gold. And right now he is, I believe, the boss of merch on the World Tour, which is a co-headlining world tour between Pierce the Veil and Sleeping with Sirens. And they are playing 2,000 to 6,000 capacity rooms across the entire world. And those are bands that sell thousands of items of merchandise a night. And he's in charge of it all. And it started with him going on shitty tours with a good to shitty punk band and learning and meeting people, being part of the community. And if you do want to be a merchandiser or a tour manager, that's where it starts. If you're in a community and you have friends and bands that go on weekend tours, hop in there with them and learn what settling a show means. Learn how to inventory merchandise. Learn how to use apps like App Venue and things like that. But it has to start somewhere to get bigger, just like anything.
So the next question is, what colleges would you recommend for having the best music industry program - music business major?
Well, let me list off some colleges that. Why don't we just list off colleges that do have these things?
Yeah, I think anything I have to say is not going to be helpful.
Okay.
So go.
Drexel University has a music industry program. Within it, there is a tech side and a business side. While I can't necessarily recommend the business side, because if you do want to be on the business side, I would simply recommend you getting a business degree. Drexel does, however, whether Jesse agrees or not, has a really good tech program in the sense of you get free access to millions of dollars worth of studios, and you can record your own band, you can record friends' bands for free or for money. And why I recommend this and think it's great is because you can practice getting good without owning $500,000 worth of gear like Jesse does. And you can learn on the best equipment in the world and not the best equipment in the world. And ultimately, like we've been saying, what gets you anywhere is practice. And if you have 4 years or 3 years at Drexel to practice on recording bands without cost except your time, I think that's great. Other schools, NYU has a school called the
Clive Davis
School of Music or something like that.
But yet again, then you got a NYU, one of the most expensive schools in America, student loan to pay off.
Right. Well, let me keep going. Well,
Yeah.
Drexel is a top 25 most expensive school in the entire country, way ahead of NYU, just so everyone knows.
Is it way ahead?
Yeah, like a few years ago, it was the most expensive school in the country.
Wow.
Rest in peace. New Orleans, Loyola of New Orleans has a music industry program. Syracuse has a music industry program. USC has something, right? I think.
Yes. UCLA, you mean?
UCLA has something. There's a school called Bendor.
Bandier, you mean at Syracuse?
Maybe that is what I mean, I guess. And there's one in somewhere in Tennessee that I can't remember right now. I apologize. Or maybe Minnesota. But so there's like 4 to 6 well-regarded schools with music industry programs. And then there's music schools like Berkeley. Out of all the ones I know of, if you really want me to recommend one, I would recommend Drexel or NYU. However, I would recommend getting a normal degree instead and living in Philly or New York and interning while you're in college. But we'll talk about that.
Okay, so next question is, hi, I'm a junior in high school currently and looking to major in entertainment management when I go to college. Maybe I wanted to look into becoming a tour manager or something along those lines that once I graduate. Everybody wants to be a tour manager.
Yeah, hey, man, it's cool. You get a lot of Twitter followers and you don't have to play an instrument.
Do you have any recommendations of what I should do now or when I'm in college to acquire a position like that? If you want to be a tour manager, learn how to use a spreadsheet. You learn how to use the app at Venue. Learn how to use Google Maps. You're done.
I can't. I have nothing to add. Literally, just learn how to do basic things in life that are not the easiest things in the world and take practice.
And let's say this too: don't get a drug addiction, and don't
Yeah,
require lots
that
of.
one.
Don't go vegan too, because if the band's not vegan, they're gonna be really pissed at having to accommodate your diet.
Huh. Well,
I've seen that one a bunch.
me too.
The next question is, I'm in high school and really want to work in music, but all of the websites for labels and management companies say in order to intern, you must have a junior or senior standing in college. Is there a way around that requirement? Absolutely. Impress the person you want to work with. Find a way to show them how good you are at what you could do for them, that you have a skill set that would make them be willing to bend the rules. That's a rule that has no consequence for them to break.
Right. I interned for Crush Management when I was 18 and graduating high school. I was not yet a college student. The way I got them to bend the rule was I ran a website called Property Zach. I was doing something. I showed that I had merit. And maybe that sounds easy for me now, but the website was about a year old at that time, and it was not very great yet. So it's just if you're more proactive and have more going on and more passion than the college students that are writing in to get the internships, you'll get them.
And you have a skill set that you show you can be useful. If you know how to edit video, or you're really good at Photoshop or web stuff, web development, if you know one of those three things, you are a super valuable intern.
Yep, I fully agree.
So, college. You're at college. What should you be doing, Zach, since you're living this life? And when I was doing that, I just got drunk a lot.
I get drunk a lot, mostly by myself with a bottle of wine.
I was going to say, I feel like I got a lot more white girl than you in college.
Yeah, I was with Thomas all weekend, and he was telling everyone, like, I've never seen Zach drunk. I don't think Zach has ever been drunk.
You know, I've never seen you.
This is the thing. Most people never see me drunk. I'm just always, like, drunk by myself.
I like to drink alone too, though. It gets good thoughts out.
Because I'm working while I'm like drinking wine and watching TV. I'm working, drinking wine, watching TV. You know, like I like to just do my thing. Is that so terrible?
I stand by this. I think people who shame people for drinking alone are not right. I like to get a little stressed out. I don't get too wasted. I just get drunk enough that I get some interesting thoughts done.
Yeah, drinking alone is great, people. Like,
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. Have you ever seen me really wasted?
Yeah.
Funny, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
No stories needed.
I mean, I did get kind of drunk this past weekend when I had 66 ounces of margaritas, but...
Well, now I have a new goal.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get like... I'm very... If you want to get me like wasted, take me out to all-you-can-drink brunch and keep pushing the Bloody Marys on me.
Oh, I don't do daytime drinking, so that's not happening.
You're pathetic.
I don't drink during the day.
Okay. Moving on to college.
Yes. Well, we basically covered college now that we discussed drinking habits. Seriously, though.
So Jesse's no help here because he didn't go to college.
I did go to college.
I got really lucky. I went to college in Philadelphia when I really wanted to go to college in Boston. I forgot.
Whoa. Why did you want to go to school
I forgot a school. I would say that the second or third best music industry school is Northeastern in Boston.
Really? I don't know anybody who's ever been there for that music business. It's funny.
And that was the only college I wanted to go to. And they turned me down early admission and general admission. Bet they regret it now.
Yeah. Yeah, when Drexel's bragging about that on alumni.
Yeah, God. Yeah. I wanted to go to Northeastern, I wanted to go to Boston, and I wanted to intern for Run for Cover and get a job at Run for Cover Records.
That's funny.
Ultimately, I ended up in Philly, a town I hated for my first year to year and a half of college. I hate the school, don't like the school still. However, I found an incredible music scene and some of the best friends I've ever had here. And within Philly, There are like 15 venues, all of which I go to at different points during the year. There are record labels like Bad Timing Records, like J Tree, like Lamo, like Relapse, and others. There are booking agents, there are promoters, there are managers, there are bloggers, etc. There are house shows. What's so cool about Philly is that it's a major music scene. Sorry, it's a major city, but it also has like Philly's so big that there are lots of pockets of small things, like a West Philly house show scene, etc. So what I would say about college and getting to college, if you do want to be involved in music, I think it's really important to pick a college, whether it's for music or not, where you can surround yourself with music and with people in music. And obvious locations for these are New York City, Long Island, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Nashville.
You really think Long Island?
Enough. You're close enough. Like there's stuff happening there. Like
I guess
it's better than Kentucky. I don't know. Nashville.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing is like when we talked about Full Sail, like that was one of the biggest things. I'm like, I grew up, you know, you and I both grew up. You grew up in New York City. I grew up going to New York City every single day, being right next to it. As I was like, I can't live in this crap hole town in Florida. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, where's the shows? Where's the anything? I'm not living this culturally devoid cesspool.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chicago, Nashville, Toronto, to an extent, Michigan. Cleveland has a good scene because of alt press, frankly.
That's true.
LA.
But you know what the thing is, though, is though there is that thing of like, there's an advantage to being in a small scene that you could become the big fish in the small pond. But really, in all reality, like, you know, like let's say you want to be in music press. Like every big music blogger in America basically lives in Brooklyn. Like with very rare exception, but it's 95%
That's
of
totally true. Yeah, and there's a lot in LA, obviously. But yes, that's true.
It's not even a lot in LA, though. That's the funny thing is it's like 5%.
Yeah, yes. And then I guess another town would be like Berkeley, California. So I think what's most important is getting a good degree while surrounding yourself with a music scene that you'd like to be part of, and making sure you get to know the bands, making sure you help the bands. Maybe you have a show and want to put on house shows. Do it well. Find small promoters who one day are going to become a big promoters. Make friends with them. While you're in, and here's the most important piece of advice I think I can give anyone. There are 40 students around me in my grade at Drexel. On my one hand, I can count how many of them are doing something in the music industry outside of the classroom. I find that really embarrassing. And let me, beyond that, remove like Ian and Jake from Modern Baseball. Like they're in a band and they're successful. But beyond that, I don't even know if I can count 5 people that are actively doing something in the music industry while in college.
But we'll see. You want to know something funny for me?
Yes.
I produced 35 records my senior year of high school of like the local punk bands.
That's incredible, yeah.
I would go around with my 4-track. I would go to a band's practice space and just record them with my 4-track. They weren't great recordings. And then some bands who had money, we'd go to a recording studio. And this is back when, you know, there was no Pro Tools. There was just tape. There was no computers. It was really high learning curve. So I would often have an engineer there, and I would produce. I would basically, because these guys would all be metal guys, and we'd be doing the punk stuff. I would say, like, no, turn down the reverb, no, turn down the, let's get a nice raw tone. And I knew how to get, like, the tones. I knew how to tune a drum set. I knew how to do, like, a lot of things that other people didn't do. So I did that. But the funny thing is, the year I went to college, I produced 3 records because I was so burnt out. And now I will also say this. I was working at WFMU as the main live engineer, which is WFMU is the top freeform radio station in America. We had bands 3 days a week. So I was recording bands 3 days a week.
And that counts, obviously.
Yeah. And I was a concert promoter at 2 clubs. And I was the sound man at 2 clubs. And I was doing my own house-VFW shows on the side too. So I was doing things, but I didn't produce records. And that was my dream. And because some of the fun got sucked out of it by going to school for it. And I think the greater problem is I had already been going to school for, or I'm sorry. I had already been producing records and doing this every day of my life for 3 years. And then when I went to school, it became like a job and it really just wasn't fun. I will give these people a little leeway because I can understand it. But your greater point that the second year in school, you should be doing this and going out and starting to make those connections, because that age that you're in college is the greatest time to make connections, because once you get older, you get way more finicky with who you can hang out with.
Yeah, let me say that, like, if you have to, if you need a job to pay off your loans or to pay for school while you're there or to pay for your housing, like, that's cool. Like, I'm not saying anything negative about that, but there are lots of kids in my program that don't even have a job for their school or whatever.
Their job is getting white girl wasted.
Right. Or their job is, I don't know, I don't know what they do, frankly, because a lot of them don't even do their homework. Yeah, I think, like, there's no, like, most people intern in the summer when they don't have school. You should be interning all year round if you want to do music. College is the best time for you to figure out what you don't want to do.
That's great advice, too. I definitely did.
If you think you want to produce records and you get an internship for Jesse Cannon and it turns out that it's not...
For the record, so we save my emails, Jesse Cannon does not accept interns.
If you want to intern for Zach Zarillo, record producer extraordinaire, and it turns out you hate producing records, not because Zach Zarillo extraordinaire is an asshole, but because you just don't have a passion for it, you never have to do that again. You maybe just saved your entire life. If you
True. That's a lot of time saved that is not real time burned.
And maybe you do that during the school year, not even during a summer internship time. If you want to intern for a promoter and see if you like being an agent and it sucks and you don't have to do it. Get experience doing things with different people. And one, that helps your resume in the future, but, two, it figures out what you do and don't like.
Yeah, it's definitely not wasted time, because I think one of the other things is, like, what you do informs the other things. Like, before I started working at West Side for Alan Douches and decided to become a record producer full-time, I worked at a record label called Go Kart Records, and I ran a record store called Soapbox Records. My knowledge of all that stuff helped Alan's business so immensely because I knew so many things. I knew who was an important client that we had to really, like, do things for. And, like, it just informed a lot of things. And none of this is going to be wasted time. If you go and work for a booking agent and then decide, you know what, I don't want to do this, I'd much rather work for a record label. You knowing stuff about booking and stuff like that and being able to help out when a band needs a spare show or two on that label, and the label or the management company says, you know what, we need to book a one-off, can you handle this? And you can handle it. That makes you valuable to them. And that makes you get a better recommendation.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Zach, you're in the middle of the thing of you've had to take courses. What can we say about courses? I think a lot of it applies to the high school advice we gave, that, like, you should be thinking about what you want to do and taking the courses that would eventually help with that stuff.
Right.
But is there anything else that you can really shed light on with college with that? Because I went to a school that there was no electives. You did a program.
So I'm currently in a class called Press, Promotion, and Publicity. And that's useless to me, but it's going to be an easy A. So that's an example of a class where, like, you can figure that out by yourself, I think. But here, sorry, that was a bad way to intro this. Let me explain the classes that I think are worthwhile. Publishing. Publishing is a really dense field where there's a lot of information and none of it makes sense and no one wants to do it. And those who do it get paid well and are in demand. I took a publishing class my sophomore year of college, and it's the only thing I have ever used from my college education in 4 years in the real world. And it was how to pay our license for Acceptance Phantoms, Bad Timing's first release. It's honestly, honest to God, the only thing I've learned in college that I've used in the real life.
For me, it was my electrical degree.
Yep.
So I fixed the outlet in my apartment the other day.
I would say that in terms of classes that you may or may not get something out of, but hopefully do, those would be publishing, accounting, and this is not a music industry class, obviously, accounting, finance, What would be some other ones?
I think statistics and analytics are really, really big things these days. Like we keep talking about on this podcast, how data is becoming a thing. Knowing how to read percentages and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, I don't know how to use
people,
Excel, and Excel stresses me out, and I want no part of it. And so if you're really good at Excel, God bless you. There are other things like learn how to do Photoshop, take a design.
How are you running 2 record labels and managing bands and not knowing how to use Excel?
I refuse. I can't do it. Here's a secret about me, guys. I'm really, really, really fucking good at a few things, and I'm terrible at the rest of them.
That's everybody, and eventually you just go, oh fuck, I have to learn this.
Every math class I've taken ever, I have failed once or dropped out of and taken a second time before getting a C or a D or a B minus. That's how I am. And Excel, while not necessarily math, is terrifying to me. I don't know, just in terms of classes, think about knowledge that you can't get truly on the internet or from a friend. Like publishing is a hard course. Legal stuff is hard to learn outside of college. Accounting.
I think you're touching on something we should expand on. There's a lot of these courses in college that are absolute bullshit that you can learn. I mean, I'm gonna be straight and also very. I'm saying, like, if you want to learn how to do press and approach bloggers, I have a chapter in my book that will teach you whatever you would need to learn on that. Instead of taking a whole course, spend that course instead on Excel or something useful. When you could just don't take class. There's so many college classes. You know, even like a great company like Creative Live. There's so many classes they have that obsolete a college course that you could literally just spend 2 days watching them and you know how to do this.
Yeah, and there's another really great online website called lynda.com.
Yeah, you're into Lynda? I've never been into their courses.
It's better than nothing, right?
Sure. I mean, you know what? I took the Excel course, so it did teach me stuff.
So yeah, there are things online that can teach you, but there's also stuff that you can't learn, basically. And you should always look. At this point, I am terrified of learning Photoshop. Yet Thomas learned Photoshop in a month last year, and now makes a lot of stuff for bad timing. And that, like, my 2 biggest weaknesses are Photoshop and Excel. And one day I hope to master one of them. Maybe. Hopefully after I graduate and have less on my plate.
So do you want to start answering some college questions? Or do you have anything more to say?
No, I think that's all.
So the first one is, hey guys, I'm planning on doing... All right, this is bad English. They need to go to college for grammar.
Oh.
Hey guys, I'm planning on going for a diploma in communications and media management for my tertiary education. Tertiary. I've never seen that word since I was your age. Do you think this would be the right course if I want to pursue a career in something along the lines of music business? Communication degrees are good degrees.
Yeah, communication.
They're a marketable skill.
Yeah, it's a good skill. To me, that falls under a degree of, like, I think I could find 50 communication majors tomorrow if I wanted to look for them. But yeah, I think what's good about, like, a communications degree is that, like Jesse said at the very top of this episode, you know, knowing how to be a good public speaker, knowing how to interact with people, knowing how to be personable, how to send the right email, how to use the right English, how to be cordial. Like, these are really things that are not, like, over exaggerated. They are of the utmost importance, you know?
And in fact, being really proficient in them will get you around a lot of things. Just like Zach was saying, he's so bad at math, but he's really good at communicating.
Yeah. Yet I'm also an asshole sometimes. And,
you know, if you exist in this world, you get called an asshole.
That's true. You're an asshole, Jesse.
I mean, dude, I've been hearing it for 20 more years than you've been alive. I've been being called an asshole.
You should hear what my dad says about you. He calls you a Democrat.
Well, you know what? That's offensive to me because I'm a progressive.
I think he might call you a socialist, but
yeah, well, yeah, I call myself a socialist too, so that's not offensive.
Moving on. What's the best major for someone looking for work in the music industry? I've heard the music industry major is a ripoff from @dad_champ. You are a champ, Dad.
Yeah.
Well, we just talked about this.
Yeah, I think we cover this one. But yeah,
I would say in general, business overall, accounting, finance, communications. Marketing,
Statistics and analytics.
marketing's good.
Yeah, marketing's actually, we've been underdoing that. Marketing and advertising is also a great thing that you can go for. And you have a great backup plan in working in the most hellish industry on earth if it doesn't work out.
Yep. So after that, we have another question from what are some of the different jobs involved with the music industry? Suggestion majors to go along with them from @Michelle _. So we did just touch on the second part.
Yeah, but let's do some direct paths. So you want to become a manager like star manager Zach Zarillo. What major do you do?
I'm a music industry major with a business track.
Okay, so but if you were not going to go for a music industry major and you wanted to be a big time manager, what would you recommend they go for? I would recommend that they did a business major.
Yeah, I would go for business and with like a marketing minor.
And so would you agree the same thing for record label?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would too.
Let me say something here. So Thomas and I have a phenomenal employee named Emily. She does. Let me talk to you about Emily. She does our mail order. She does our finances.
She pays my invoices when I send them.
Yeah, she does our mail order, our finances, and our publicity. She is killing it. She is making all the money that we have, and I'm not saying that in like a bad way. Like we would give her more money if she would allow us to. You know what I mean? Like, she's incredible. She's a music industry major, but she's really smart. She knows how math works. She knows how Excel works. If I had a business degree and knew how to use Excel, no offense, Emily, but we wouldn't have to pay you. I could do it all myself until the record label got too big. So yeah, if you want to be a record person, like I 100%. Think while you're going to punk shows and meeting people, you should be getting a really good business degree and with like some kind of sub accounting or finance degree.
Booking agent.
Geography.
I would say accounting.
Yeah, I would say accounting too. Numbers are oddly everything. I took a booking class a little while ago, and we had to use Excel all the time, and that was why it was so difficult for me. Yeah, I think accounting for a booking agent. For a publicist, I would say communications and marketing. Nothing else, just
I would say, yeah, communications, marketing, new media. I know that's a new
media.
New major.
Yes, sure. Yeah. But you need to know how to talk with people.
You need to talk with people, write compelling. Actually, creative writing for publicity. I mean, it might be a little above the pay grade.
Yeah,
but learning how to say things that aren't so boring and trite. That's really helpful in publicity, and learning to be creative too. It's just that's a big thing in what publicity is becoming. I think I already said record production that you should just get a music degree, maybe a business degree too. I told my co-producer Mike when he was still in college to get a business degree, and I think he actually listened to me for a little while.
Wow.
So then the next question is, what are some crucial things I should do as a sound recording major to get a footing in the business? I feel like maybe we misclassified this question, but I kind of said this before, but I'm going to say this again. The key is to work for free and do great work and really bust your ass with bands until there's bands breaking down your door to record for you for money. But until then, just work with as many bands as you can for free until you get other bands wanting to do it. How is one in the music business looked at with a master's in entertainment business? Just fine.
Yeah. Entertainment's like, yeah, I think that's.
I mean, well, so let me ask you this: if you were hiring for, let's say, Bad Timing, Jade Tree, or Synergy, would you prefer somebody had a music business degree, an entertainment business degree, or just a business degree?
That's a funny question, because what I would want to know is, if I'm hiring you to be an art person, how good are you at art? How good are you at like Photoshop, right? If I'm hiring you to do an accountant for me, let me try to answer this better. If I'm hiring you for something that involves not the business itself, I just need you to be able to do it and show me that you can do it well. If I'm hiring you for something where you're in control of my money or my business, that might be the only thing where I do look at your degree and your past. And in that sense, I would want you to be talented or able in accounting or finance or business, so on.
I think this segues really well into our last question and our next topic, which is interning. So our last question is, in college, should I aim to be versatile or branch out or focus on one area and hone that craft? So this is a really interesting thing because I think this is like a life dilemma you go through.
You mean are you saying that to me as in I have 4 jobs and 2 podcasts, or to our listeners?
No, but like you think of it this way. You've kind of decided that you're really not into that Excel thing. And I think it's been very important to me. I used to be the type of person that like I was always learning something new. I would try to learn every skill set and know everything so I could just be super, super self-sufficient. And then I learned that I'd rather just be the real best at something and just absolutely kill it all the time at that one particular thing and then hire out for the rest. But this is kind of one of those things you have to decide is that, yeah, you know, if you know how to do a lot of things like at around 20 years old really well, like if you know Photoshop, video editing, and HTML really well, I'm going to want to hire you as a record label intern. But does that really do you well for getting a great job afterwards, especially since a lot of these internships are never going to hire you and there's never going to be a position there for you? It's really good to just be a great video editor because then you can get tons of jobs being a video editor.
Yeah, I would say pick something, learn it, get good at it, and show that you can be good at it. Meaning, like, if you, let's just use Photoshop as an example, you're going to be really bad when you start. Get good at it, and then make things to show that you're good at it. And if you want to further branch out from there, let's say into video editing or into learning how to run a record label, do those things. But it's okay to not be doing everything at once and then learning things separately instead and then using them together in the future, you know? Just like don't half-ass it. Get like this isn't always true, but being really incredible at one skill versus passable at 2 skills can often be better, I would say.
Yeah. At the same time, just being good at taking either of these paths and continually getting better and better. Like here's a great example is if like you're pretty damn good at graphic design and at coding, you become a very well-rounded web developer who can do a lot of things and do something start to finish. Like if you can complete a whole app without having to hire another person, that's phenomenal that you know user interface and design and that well enough to get something pretty basic done. But at the same time, this is kind of a question you have to ask yourself of what you're going to be interested in. But I think in the job market, because like really the interning's leading up to the job market at some point anyway, at the end of the day, you're going to want to be really, really good at one thing and then have the knowledge of some other things so that you can be well-rounded enough to understand things.
Absolutely. So that's what we're going to call it for this episode. We feel really good about this. This was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
We're in the show notes for this at offtherecord.fm. We're going to have all of these questions. And while I go through them, if I can think of anything to add to them for those reading, I'll add in some things into the show notes. And for next week's episode, we're going to pick up with general interning and our first job and our thoughts on the first jobs or jobs in the music industry in general, outside of school and education. But this is really great. This episode will be airing soon, and then the secondary general intern and first job one will be airing the week after. So thank you guys for listening. And the next episode will air sometime soon. Regardless, thank you guys for having so much feedback and input into this episode. This was a lot of fun, and we're excited to tape and release the next one. Thank you to everyone for listening to Off the Record this week. Head to offtherecord.fm to check out show notes, to leave us any feedback. Jesse can be found at Twitter at Jesse Cannon. I'm at Zarillo, and our podcast is at Off the Record FM. We'll be back next week.